Hi there, I'm Dr. Chris Atchison-Clare, the director of Purdue University's SILMAR, the Center for Intercultural Learning, Mentorship, Assessment, and Research. And I'm doing this series of videos to help facilitators of intercultural learning activities understand how better to implement the instructions that you might find in the Help a Cool Toolbox. So not for end users, not to show to students, but to provide some insight for you, the facilitator. I hope you enjoy this discussion that I'm about to do with the activity called the Albatross. What you see here is the description of the albatross within the Hubicle. I'm going to give you a very brief, there's a link here to a video, just a very brief look at what this might look like. It is a simulation, and so this is not something that I think I would try online. A lot of intercultural learning activities you can adapt to a virtual context and maybe move into a COIL or a virtual exchange setting. But the albatross is one that relies on visceral sort of gut reactions to experiences that feel uncomfortable. And as such, I have trouble, imagining how it would work online. I mean, you can have people watch a video and then react to it, but it's not at all the same as actually being in the moment and experiencing and participating in a ritual that you don't know what's going on and feels very uncomfortable, and you're misinterpreting what's happening. And so there's great learning that can come from that simulation, and I don't see it playing out online. Anyway, so if you watch just a couple of seconds of this video, you can see kind of some of the ritual things that are happening. You see here a man sitting, a woman kneeling on the ground. She's barefoot. She comes over and she's going to access some food here and feed him. So there's definitely some sort of religious ritual performance things happening. You need at least one female, if you are yourself not female, confederate, if you will, partner in doing this. If you're female, you can get away with just doing it yourself. I've done it many times in class without any support or help. So you see her feeding him. And again, the bowing. So depending on how large your group is, you can involve every single person that's present in this process and invite everyone to participate. If you have a very large group, you might want to select some people to participate and everybody else watches. It definitely takes some setup. So you see chairs here, you see floor coverings, there's food. When people come into the scene and participate, you're going to have to provide them some direction. Of course, all this is done silently, so there's no talking, but you're going to have to provide them some direction with lots of gestures of what you expect them to do, because they're sort of floundering. They don't understand what's going on, and the men will try to do things that they're not supposed to in this scenario. So you'll have to direct them to seat themselves and show them what to do, not let them feed themselves, those kind of things. And you'll have to model for females what you expect them to do. So this is easily adaptable to a classroom setting. You can do it in trainings. It does require lots of props and such. You'll need some sort of clothing or something so that you sort of, have a priestess vibe going on. Whatever female is doing this priestess role. And of course, you're going to need the chairs and food and such. One thing that I've run into more and more recently, because I've been doing this for like 30 years, this particular activity. And in the early days, we never worried about things like gluten-free or like if people had particular, allergies or food preferences or whatever. I try to nowadays use foods that are as mild and non-reactive as possible, and then to give people an out and tell them ahead of time, if something is going to make you sick, don't feel like that you have to, participate out of politeness. So speaking of warnings ahead of time, this is an activity that does require a sort of pre-briefing, if you will. In addition to the very important debriefing afterwards, you want to give people some information before you go into this. You don't want to give them information about what they're going to experience exactly, and you don't want to give them information about what anything means, because the whole point of the simulation is for them to try to figure out what it means, and of course to be wrong, because the simulation is actually designed in such a way that people will have misconceptions and be interpreting things according to their own cultural frameworks, which is not at all what's happening in this this particular hypothetical cultural ritual. It's especially meant for people from developed countries and patriarchal cultures to be misinterpreting things. So anyway, information that you want to give folks ahead of time. I think it's really important to tell people that they can't talk, right? That it's silent. I sometimes, to sort of draw them into a scenario, I sometimes tell them that they are visitors to a culture, and they've been invited to participate in a ceremony, a ritual, and they're welcome to come in and participate, but to try to be as polite as possible, not to talk at all, and to watch other people and try to figure out what's going on so that they can behave appropriately. And that's when I would also say, if, however, something is going to be dangerous for you, don't feel like you need to, participate in every single little thing. Just make an attempt not to be rude, okay? And then I tell them, as soon as we've had a chance to experience the ceremony, I will return with you out of this context and be a cultural informant for you, and we'll sort of talk through what you experienced and what you think it means and what your reaction was and what you took away from it. So that's how I sort of set up the simulation. Some things that you want to be aware of, it does set up a gender binary. So there's a very clear role for men and women in this scenario, and that makes some people uncomfortable. And so if you are in a setting where it's a sensitive thing to talk in terms of that binary, you want to be careful making the choice to do it, first of all, but also in how you debrief it. Because some people will react negatively to it because of that very explicit binary that is present. Other things to be careful of, there are some people who are very, very uncomfortable. So sometimes when I do this activity, I actually, as the teacher, as the facilitator in the moment, I actually remove people's shoes, the women's shoes, myself, and wash their feet when they come in and participate in the ceremony. And that makes some students, particularly from cultures where a teacher or a professor or a facilitator in front of the classroom is a position of status and a very revered person, that makes some people incredibly uncomfortable. Also be aware that some people are uncomfortable with their own and other people's bodies, right? So smells, feeding each other, getting that close to each other's mouths. So that sort of bodily contact and bodily vulnerability is very difficult for some people to handle. So it's not for everyone, and I would say if you are uncomfortable at all handling unpredictable reactions from people and or very difficult conversations afterwards, then I would stay away from this activity, this simulation. It is best done by very experienced and confident facilitators who are very sensitive to the nuances of the moment and can handle conversations that get emotional and help people process and debrief them well. So let me just see if there's anything else that I want to add here. It says here 2 hours, 30 minutes for the actual simulation and 90 minutes for the discussion. I would say that is, if you do it very thoroughly with a large group, that you probably do need at least an hour and a half to 2 hours. I have done it with smaller groups of, say, 6 to 10 people in maybe an hour, with about 15 to 20 minutes of the simulation and then 40 to 45 minutes of discussion. Just don't ever do it and not leave yourself time to debrief. So if you start this and then leave people hanging, it's disastrous because they really need support in the debriefing process. All right, we're trying to keep these videos about 10 minutes and I am out of time. So I will make some additional notes and put them in a review of the Albatross. And hopefully if you do decide to do this, then it will work well for you. One of my favorite learning outcomes of this is the self-awareness of the biases that we have and the lenses through which we look, and how we experience things sometimes very differently from how they're intended because of who we are and the experiences that we've had coming into an experience or a new setting. But that's sometimes difficult to get to in a debriefing because it's a challenging experience. So I'm going to wrap up this video here. Thank you very much for tuning in. We hope that you not only begin to consume things in the Pubical Toolbox, but also make contributions of your own, whether those are reviews or adaptations or tools of your own. And we will see you in the Pubical. Thanks.